Hi, and welcome to Living Matters podcast. I'm Nicky and I'm joined today by two incredible women, two clinical psychologists. I have Dr. Christina Thomson and Dr. Katie Thornton with me today. So hello, ladies. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello. Hi.
How are you feeling about being here today?
Yeah, excited.
Excited.
Excellent.
Yeah, a bit nervous.
Excited and nervous. I think that's really normal. And so we have Christina and Katie with us today, and they are both facing cancer, and they have their own diagnosis. And I would love you just to spend a couple of moments sharing your story, so you can bring the audience up to speed with where you're at in your own journeys, please. So I'll start with you, Christina.
Yeah. So I've got diagnosis of secondary breast cancer at the moment. I had a primary diagnosis last April. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I had my treatment. That was quite out the blue, I guess. I don't have a family history. I don't hit any risk factors. I'm young, and it was relatively progressed at the primary diagnosis. So I had chemo and things last year, 2 surgeries, and then I found out at Christmas time that it's progressed to like a secondary diagnosis now. So I'm in kind of ongoing treatment for the secondary part of it now.
Okay. And for anyone who's watching or listening who doesn't understand what the secondary cancer diagnosis is, how would you explain that?
So it's metastatic breast cancer. So it means that it's moved from the primary site. So it's not in my breast anymore. And I now have a couple of tumours in my bones, but it could be somewhere else for somebody else. That's just how it looks for me. But it means that the cancer's kind of separated from where it started and moved to another part of the body. But it's still breast cancer. So it's still the original cancer that's moved somewhere else.
Okay, thank you. So, Katie, I am going to come to you, but I'm just going to stick with Christina for now. How did that feel last year, and then also with what happened at Christmas?
Shocking. I think a real shock. So the change, I don't know if the change was a shock, but I think it happened so close to the primary diagnosis that I hadn't really ever switched to thinking the cancer was gone anyway. So I was still, in my mind, living with cancer, even though I was going through the treatment. I hadn't really shifted my perspective to think that it had gone away, because I didn't want to count my chickens, I suppose. And so then when the diagnosis changed, it was really sad and a shock to hear that it had shifted. But I think the whole thing has just been a bit of a whirlwind, I suppose. It's like living somebody else's life sometimes. But so hard. It's been a hard year.
I bet it has. And how have the health professionals supported you in a helpful way? And what do you think's missing?
So I've had some really, really good care. And Katie and I were chatting before, and I was saying I've been really fortunate where things like the breast care nurse that I met on my very, very first screening appointment is the same nurse I've had at each and every results appointment, and is somebody that I would say, built a relationship with. So she can kind of cry with me, hold my hand with me, be beside me and things. And I think that's been really helpful. But I think overall, I guess, as a psychologist as well, I think the thing I've been really surprised by is the lack of awareness of like the psychological impact, the mental health side of diagnosis, treatment, all of that. I think is there in patches, but I think I don't really think the care system is set up to support that necessarily. I feel like they're kind of in bits. You get like a good bit of care that holds that in mind, but I think it's really down to the individual nurse you see or the individual doctor. Or so if you see somebody else, I think your experience might be quite different depending on who you see, rather than so I'd say it's variable. There's some I think I've had some, like I said, I have had some excellent care, so I don't want to bash the people that I've seen either, because I don't think it's that, but I do think there's not a huge awareness of the psychological impact either.
Okay, so we'll come back to that. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Katie, what about for you? What's your story?
So it's quite different to Christina's. my primary diagnosis was in 2014. So I was 33. Just being engaged, kind of really excited about life, and was diagnosed. And it was a shock, but it wasn't a huge shock. Like, I'd been to the GP several times from when I was 20 about the same area of my breast that I was concerned about. And I had a strong family history. My auntie died of breast cancer when I was about 12 or 13, and she was 44, so she was young. So it was always kind of on my radar to be breast aware. And but then I had treatment. It was all kind of they thought it caught really early. It had spread to one lymph node. So I had chemo, radio, I had IVF, and then was like, go off, live your life. And that was it, really. I then moved to Australia, and I was in Australia for 7 years. And I did kind of go to regular screenings and regular scans. I kind of remember asking quite a lot it's like you said, I was never, people use the words cancer-free, and I never felt that I could use those words because it had spread to one lymph node at primary diagnosis. And so I was always like, how do you know it's not somewhere else, or somewhere else waiting to kind of start growing again? But I guess there's a lot of unknowns about cancer, and unless you present with kind of symptoms that are really clear cut, then it can be quite hard to get those taken seriously. I had 2 children when we were in Australia, and then I started getting some hip pain, and went to the GP. I was sent for an X-ray, and they said it was bursitis. And then, like, I had other symptoms like fatigue, and kind of it was all just put down to other things like hormonal. You've been breastfeeding, you're a new mum, you're too young, you're too slim, you're too young, like all of those things I kind of have heard. And then we moved back to the UK in kind of 2022, maybe 2021. And I got back in the system, and I was like, I'm just going to go and get this checked out, because it was the same area I was still concerned about. And then I got my secondary diagnosis. So the secondary although I'd been going about certain symptoms, it was still a huge shock. I think I'd been for a breast MRI, and in my head, I thought a breast MRI just looked at your breast. So I didn't realise that it actually picked up other areas of your body. And it was on that breast MRI that they saw changes in my liver. So that then prompted more scans. And I was diagnosed with secondary just over 2 years ago. So there was like an 11-year, maybe 10 years between my primary and secondary diagnosis.
So how did that feel then a couple of years ago?
Oh gosh, it was really shocking. I think I'd primed myself. I knew that something wasn't right, because they said they were talking about my results at a team meeting, which is going to be never going to be great news. But I thought it's going to be a reoccurrence. That's what I'd primed myself going into that appointment for. I went into the appointment on my own because we'd just moved back from Australia. My husband was in an interview. I kind of thought, I'll be able to deal with this if it's a reoccurrence. And so then to be told, and because there's 3 people in the room when you go in, and they're all like, wait, like sat there like that. And you're like trying to. So I knew as soon as I got called from the waiting room, because she was like, oh, you've come on your own. And I was like, uh-huh. And then the alarm bells start going off. And I'm quite good in that, like, when I was told the diagnosis, I can remain quite calm, and I can take in lots of information, and I can ask lots of questions. But I remember just leaving that room and having to sit in the reception in North Tyneside, and just kind of like my ears were ringing for days after. Like, it was just so kind of traumatic, I think. And then to leave that and go into being a mum of 2, like, and seeing the family who knew you were going to that appointment, and trying to process that information. It was hard.
And I don't know if it's better or worse, like, knowing the system, because I felt that because I guess I know how the NHS works. I work in the NHS. So I know if they've got a team meeting on a Monday, I can visualise exactly how a team meeting in the NHS goes. I know that I'll be top of the list for their risk. I know they'll have discussed me. Whereas like my husband coming into those things, he was kind of saying, well, they might not talk about you today, Christina. And I was saying, well, no, they definitely will, because I know working in the NHS, I know how it works. I know how they read these things. I know I'll be on their board as high risk because we're waiting for scan results. So I know they talk about me Monday. If they've not called me Tuesday with good results, I know that like by Wednesday that's probably not a good thing I'm going into. But sometimes I don't know if that's better or worse to know the way the NHS works either, because maybe that puts you on high alert for things that are like, I know things don't always follow process, and maybe it would be better if I trusted that they did. I don't know. But I think you kind of learn that they don't. And I think that does change your experience going into things, but maybe prepares you more as well. Sometimes I've wondered how much more complicated it is for people to navigate, because at least I understand the language, and you'll be the same, Kate. Like, I understand when they're using anagrams and they're using things, I know what they mean. And sometimes we've come out and my husband will have said, well, what were they talking about there? And I'll be like, well, I'll just catch you up later, because like I can follow the way they're talking about things. And actually, as somebody who doesn't do anything to do with the healthcare system, for him, he's there thinking, well, what was that? Or my friends that have come with me have said like, oh God, it's so lucky that you know how this is, or that this appointment is, or I can see where an admin error has happened, and I don't assume that that's a clinical error. Like I can see, I know this is just an appointment letter that's in the wrong place, and so I'll phone up and get it changed. But I think for other people who don't know the system, that must be really difficult, because you might get a letter through and think, oh my God, is my clinic, has that changed then? Is this completely different? Have they talked about me? Whereas I know that probably what's happened is something has triggered a letter to be sent, or because I know that that's how the computer systems are set up. And I think some of that, it's just a whole other layer of understanding. I think that it's just another thing.
Well, you can see behind the curtains a bit,
exactly.
So you've got information that other people wouldn't have, which, like you say, could be a blessing and a curse. Because it either equips you and enables you to understand a bit more, or it means that you could read into something, a message that maybe isn't there. But listen, can you talk me through? And I mean, I feel I think anyone listening to this is privileged in the sense of you're both really honest and forthcoming with your own stories, but you're both clinical psychologists. And so you have, again, a kind of like behind the curtains understanding of what's happening in that moment, when that traumatic situation hits. So what is actually, from a psychological perspective, I'll start with you, please, and then we'll come to Katie afterwards. What's happening from a psychological point of view at the point where someone is receiving that news?
So I guess as you're being told, it's a trauma happening, really, and that's the thing I think gets a little bit missed as well. So the moment, because anything that is a threat to your life physically, or your kind of sense of who you are, that shakes your world like that in a kind of negative, threatening way, can be experienced as a trauma. So I guess at that moment, your brain is automatically going into its sort of threat system. It's automatically hearing there is a danger. The alarm is going off in your brain to say, we need to be preparing for a danger here. So the way you're taking in all that information is different, because your brain at that point stops. It's not a priority then for it to lay down like a really nice memory story, like in the way that we do in day-to-day life. What the brain starts to prioritize is survival. So all those bits in your brain that are sort of trying to keep you alive start to work faster and more, they're kind of coming online and working harder. And the bits that would normally file away a memory are sort of dialed down a little bit. So what it means is your you're only potentially hearing certain bits of what's being said. There's certain bits, there'll be keywords that are flashing out to you that your brain is putting loads of attention on, and others that it's not hearing so strongly. All your other senses are working harder, so the lights might seem brighter, the smell might be really strong. And so what it means is that afterwards you're going to go away, and when you try to think back to that moment, it's not the same as me asking you like how your holiday was last year, because when you're in a relaxed state, you can tell me a story where there's a start and an end, and there's a nice bit in the middle where you can follow through, this is what happened. But if I ask you to tell me about a trauma memory, what you're going to tell me is something started here and it ended here, but the bit in the middle, I couldn't, this happened and this happened and this. It's like lots of bits of a jigsaw that are scattered around the table rather than together in a nice picture. And so I guess that means even from that moment when you're sat in an appointment and somebody's saying to you, you've got cancer, or it might not be the point they say it, it might be the point that you realise that they say is there's somebody with you, because then your head goes, oh my God, I've got cancer. So it's the moment that you're realising that that's the reality, your brain is starting to flip into the way it's hearing all that and taking all that in, and that changes the whole experience of that. And that's why you can be left feeling like you just you're sort of numb sometimes, or you're kind of a bit, it's out of body almost, like it's not happening, or you might notice all the anxiety type symptoms there. You might be completely overwhelmed with that kind of emotion that comes in the moment, all those range of things. But all of that impacts then how you're taking in what they're telling you and how able you are to take that in, because you get a lot of information really quickly. And actually, if you're relying on your memory in that moment to hear that,
because presumably it's the details, the bits that they're trying to tell you, and you're just take it out basically by.
And some people will be better. Like I think, like Katie said, I guess in a crisis, some of us are more primed to manage in that state. So I would say there's probably a reason I do the job I do. I'm quite good in a crisis. And so actually my brain is able to kind of compartmentalize a little bit. It'll be in a threat system, but I am able to be like, right, how are we dealing with this now? And whereas somebody else who's not used to that kind of crisis situation, they might completely not taken any of the information at all that's given to them. So it's very, we're all slightly different in it, but it is that moment your brain is starting to react to, there is a threat here that I need to take seriously. And that's not going to switch off immediately either, because with cancer, there's not a point that you start to feel safe again. And so there isn't a moment for your brain to say, okay, this is ended now, because that's really hard to get when we're living with cancer.
What about from your point of view?
When you're in that room as well, when you're in that survival state, it's like you're looking for certainty, you're looking for things that you can hang on to. And the thing with cancer is it's just so much uncertainty. Like there are no kind of clear answers or clear, and especially at that diagnosis stage, I found for secondary, it was, they didn't know anything really. They just knew that it looked like the cancer had spread, and to leave that with that level of uncertainty as well, to be told that you've got this kind of thing growing like elsewhere and there's nothing you can, and then to just go and I guess anxiety breeds uncertainty, doesn't it? And that's what cancer kind of, and treatment is, you don't know how effective things are going to be, and
so with all of that uncertainty, and as you say, with the uncertainty comes the anxiety, how do you then walk in the front door at home with your mum hat on and your sort of partner or wife hat on, and how do you explain to the people that you love what's happening while you're also trying to process it for yourself?
I mean, I don't know if there's a right answer to that. I think everyone's going to be very different, and I think who you've got as your support systems are going to, I guess, impact that as well. I spoke to my husband at the time because I'd picked him up on the way to then pick my kids up after my diagnosis, and then I didn't tell anybody else until kind of there was a bit more certainty. So I took that time to kind of get my head around it and to sit with it for a bit. But it was really like those first few months after secondary diagnosis, like they were excruciating. Like it was really, really difficult. I think I found it quite hard to be around my loved ones because I think it was really painful. And I guess the family history as well, it's quite hard because cancer's, it's a big part of our family really, and it's a really painful memory for many people. So I guess that played into it as well. So I kind of wanted to go in with a bit more information. And I guess, I don't know how you found it, but being a mum it was really hard to start off with. Like I found it actually quite hard to even be around the boys, like in those first couple of days after, because I just, it was like, everything was like
your triggers.
It was completely. But with time, like they're the thing that ground you. Like there's nothing better than kids to bring you back to the present moment, because they are. Their needs come first, don't they? For them, so they need feeding. Yeah. They need
I just have to say, it really reminds me of when Sarah was talking about this exact same thing, because she was talking about how she had gone home on a particular day, and she was explaining to the children in particular what was going on. And there was a sort of a sense of sadness, and then quiet, and then there was, so what's for tea then?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that sounds a lot like what you're describing too.
I have had more conversations with them as time's gone on, because they notice everything. My youngest is 4, and if I've got a plaster on, if I've had a blood test or something, he will spot it from a mile off. And that obviously there's side effects of treatment as well, like the tiredness, and I guess it's important to have some kind of understanding of that with the kids. Otherwise, I guess my worry is that they would internalize that and start blaming themselves, or think that you don't want to, if you can't do the school run, it might be about them. So it was important for me to find a way to speak to them. And yeah, it's something that we just kind of talk about quite regularly, but not in really, let's sit down and talk about cancer kind of. It just comes up often at bath time or bedtime, or and you can go, like, kids are brilliant. They say it, they're really direct, they say what they think, they ask the questions, and everybody else is afraid to ask, and then they say something like, why do elephants have trunks? Or like, it's and if adults were more like that, I think it would be beautiful. Yeah. But yeah, the Fruit Fly Collective are a charity that have developed a lot of resources for parents, and I found they've developed kits that you can get from the hospital, I think, and they're quite a good, just little, I guess, resource to have at home too.
There's quite a few nice little bits now, I think, for even just for starting the conversations. And I think kids just like getting new things, don't they? So mine just like that every now and again they get something brought into the house that's like a new game or a new book that's about, it doesn't really matter whether the topic's like radiotherapy or whether it's something else. Like, so they're just like, this is great. Shall we read that book again? But I think the more you create a safe space for the conversation, children just lean right into that. And so then I think I've done similar to you, Katie. Like, I've just tried not to make it frightening. I'm quite careful that they don't see me when I'm overwhelmed, so that they don't see, so I don't take the safety away from them, that I do it from a position of me still being mum for them, because actually my role is to be safe to them. As long as I hold that in front of them, but I have quite open conversations, really, although not from similarly, I didn't tell them immediately either. I think it's really hard when you walk out of the appointment, because you've not really made sense of anything in your own head, and even trying to put words to it, I certainly wouldn't have spoken to my children at that point, because I don't think it would have been explainable enough to them in a way that made sense to them, or
I think there's more chance of getting overwhelmed as well at that time, isn't it? And kind of
absolutely
being distressed.
I think I just tried to keep busy because my appointment was on a Saturday morning, and I remember having to come home and think, oh my God, how am I going to be mum for the rest of the afternoon? And I don't think I've ever done so many jigsaws in one afternoon, because like you said, like when you look, because that's what you're scared of is dying and losing your kids and not being there for them. And so looking at them is really hard, because that's the bit that you're thinking, God, I can't imagine not being here for you. Like, and so you're trying to, but you also want to be with them, because not being with them feels really hard as well, because then you feel like they're distant from you. And so I remember just doing loads of jigsaws, because it was a way to be with them, but also to keep my mind on something else. Like I was focused on that. We just did jigsaws. And then I think the next day we went up Northumberlandia to like be outside and walking and ironically kind of climbing a large left breast. Representative or not of what had just happened, but I do go up there regularly now just to symbolically mark it. But I think that, but it is hard, and it's just the same. And my diagnosis changed, the secondary one I got on Christmas Eve, so my Christmas Eve was hard, but again, I knew going into that appointment, that's what they were going to tell me. I think it was a shock for everybody else, but I'd already I just knew that's what they were going to say in that appointment. And so like I'd booked afternoon tea and like Spanish City and things to do something to be, because I thought I just want Christmas to be normal, and I don't want the boys to be impacted, and I need somebody else to bring that energy in. So as long as we can go through the motions of getting ourselves into the Spanish City, then we'll do that, and Christmas will be there, and then we can kind of keep going. But I think you have to balance feeling it and actually switching off from it as well, because sometimes turning it off, that avoidance is healthy avoidance, because just looking at it all the time is really painful, isn't it? And you can't live your life like that. You can't constantly look at this fear and live life, because you're just scared all the time then. So sometimes I do think you have to make a choice to look the other way, like because that's the only way to be mum and live the life you want to live.
Well, I was wondering the same. Sort of thing, because I mean, first of all, like for both of you, that such like tremendous courage to be able to talk about it, to go through, what you've gone through and be able to talk about it. And I really, as a mum as well of two, I really don't underestimate those sorts of moments when you're spending time with the kids. And I can really imagine how overwhelming at times it must be. What do you do in those moments where, like where the sort of the emotion of it all and the terror, when that starts to really build, what do you do to manage it?
In front of the children, or generally, like
in general? Yeah.
I suppose different things, like I think for me, it's a balance of leaning into it sometimes, because it is really sad and it is really frightening, and it wouldn't be helpful for me to walk about and say that I'm not terrified or that I'm not sad, because that's a huge part of life. And so sometimes I would let myself feel that. I guess sometimes I just name it and say, this is because I'm really anxious right now, or like I can feel my anxieties there, and I'll name that that's what's happening, or I'll let myself have a cry. Like I try to do it in places that feel safe. So like in bed at night, when I feel safe, I can just cry, and that's somewhere that's okay to let that out and feel that. And then at other times, I think I try and do things to soothe myself a little bit, so to try and calm my nervous system down, because it's in threat all the time. So I do a lot of I do like conscious connected breath work, and a lot of meditation. Be outside a lot. I'll try and go walking regularly, whether it's I go watch the sunrise at the coast, like things I just to connect to being in the present moment, and things that are just, I suppose, the stuff that makes me feel comforted and soothed. But What exactly that is might look different for different people, I suppose, too, because it's whatever gives you that feeling of being comforted and calm. So I try and get a balance of letting myself feel things and then also sort of soothing that a little bit. I don't know if you do different things, Kate.
Yeah, very similar, really. I think for me, with the Whitley Bay Beach holds a lot of my, like, I walk those sands. Yeah, I think being near the beach, I spend a lot of time kind of there, and breath work. I do a lot of yoga. So I try and do things, I guess, to stop getting to that point of overwhelm, I guess, or to manage some of the stress, some of the anxiety. I was quite lucky in some ways. I think when I was diagnosed, the same week I started a surf course for mums at Tynemouth, and that was one of my first questions. The oncologist was like, "Can I still do this surf course?" And she was like, "Yep." So that has happened pretty much every week since I was diagnosed, and that is just like, it's been magic, because it's just a chance to move. Like, you can't think of anything else when you're trying to stay alive in the surf. In time, I'd never stay upright, but stay floating, I think. And the cold water, just being around a group of other women where it's not about anything to do, like, they didn't know about my diagnosis when I first started, and they do now, but we don't talk about stuff. We don't really talk about anything because you just got mouthfuls of water. And it's just a chance to be silly and to play. And I think it can feel so heavy having a diagnosis, and people can sometimes, I think, find it hard to be silly and be funny, and to, that, and that's a big part of my identity and always has been. And so, I do feel quite lucky that has run alongside it, because I felt like that's kind of been a real joy, like, for me, and continues to be. So, I'm still a rubbish surfer, but that's okay. So, I guess it's finding things that work for you to soothe, but also to, I guess, ways you can express yourself and be you.
Because humor is so good, isn't it? And I think I feel lucky working in mental health. I guess black humor is there a bit the same as it is in the police force and the prison service, and I feel like other people can meet me on that, because black humor isn't everybody's cup of tea. And when you're going through cancer and incurable cancer, like, not everyone wants to have a laugh about that, but I guess I'm quite I suppose I don't mind joking about those things. And sometimes there's nothing else, like, sometimes my days just feel so ridiculous that I'm saying to my friend, God, like, you think your Monday is bad. Like, I've just been to, this is now me on my 4th appointment of the day, because I've had, like, bloods done here, and I'm doing a tour of, like, the local, like, sort of hospital provisions. Like, and if you don't have a space to just speak to that in a kind of normal way, I think that's really hard as well. So I do feel fortunate that I have people that can handle that, because I think they're used to that way of, it doesn't jar too much with them, like, they can kind of hold that a little bit, because I know that's not easy for everyone. And I do have to be careful who some of my family or sort of, like, my husband finds that a bit harder sometimes, because that's not his natural way to be. So I think, but if you've got those outlets where there's people that can just, I think it's seeing the whole person, isn't it? Like, they can just still see all of your identity, that they don't just get stuck on one thing. They can still see that, oh yeah, you have cancer, but you're Katie who surfs, or like, you're Christina who still comes to the gym, or you're like, you still see those parts of people. So having spaces for being more than just cancer,
and a bit lighter as well. It was, you both sort of referenced about it, the heaviness, and that, and I mean, both of you would be able to explain this much better than me, but as humans, we're not built to just only deal with heaviness and, sadness and the grief, that kind of comes with it. So finding the moments where you can like inject the joy or be a bit lighthearted about it. And even, something that you said before about choosing to just not think about it in a moment and just shelve it if you can, shelve it, so that you can create a little bit more space for yourself to feel and kind of enjoy a little bit of lightness, even if it just feels a bit temporary.
Yeah, absolutely. Because your present moment, like a lot of the fear, a lot of the time is about the future. It's not about the present moment. Like there are moments that like treatment is hard and there might be a moment in treatment that you're thinking, God, I hate this bit of treatment or this isn't nice, but moments change all the time. And so there are also moments that you think, I just feel the same as I've always felt, or this is really nice. It's the future that gets frightening, or it's sometimes the memories of what's come before, the past stuff that's there. So if you can be just in that moment, then that's no different to what it was before cancer, because moments are moments, aren't they? They change for all of us. Like it's
It feels like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it feels like a really sensible bit of advice for anyone else who's sort of listening to this and finding themselves in the same situation, is to probably double down on your efforts to put yourself in the present moment. So what am I doing right here, right now? And what can I do that's going to make me feel good right here, right now? Just as a way to temper the fear, like you say, with if I was to sit and think about the longer term, that's going to feel really overwhelming.
Because it's more uncertain, isn't it? Our futures. I mean, the reality is all futures uncertain, isn't it? None of us know. Like, so, but I think people say that quite a lot. I think actually when you get, I don't know if you find that, I get that a lot. Well, it's uncertain for everybody. And I'm like, well, it's a little bit more uncertain for me though. Like, so, like it is helpful, but also like when you're living with it, you're kind of thinking, yeah, okay, like I get that. But at the same time, I feel like it's a little bit more of a pressure on me right now. So I think because there's a reality that my risk of dying has increased. Like it was always there, but like it has gone up. Like, so I guess that's different, isn't it? Like living with that. But anything, if you can bring the time frame down, the certainty increases. So I can with more certainty say that I might have a nice weekend this weekend, or that in next month I can do something, that we could go on holiday, or like the time frame, the shorter your time frame, I guess it gives you a window where you can be more certain of what life looks like. And I think that, because that's taking one level of uncertainty and one level of anxiety then out of the equation, which when your brain is looking for things, certainties to hang on to create safety, like that helps. Like it just helps it to feel more safe in that way.
And I think the same for being a mum and like parenting. I think it can be really overwhelming, obviously, thinking about the future, and that's probably one of our main concerns. So I think, I wrote down when I was first diagnosed, like two things, like what do they need from me today? Like what can I do now in this moment? Like what can we do as mums? Like rather than thinking about, what does next year look like, or what does 5 years look like? It's actually, well, they've got a lot that they need me for now. So if you focus on that, then it can stop that kind of overwhelm.
I do the same. I think every day, I think, or like this morning, because I had a not great scan yesterday, I took the kids into school this morning and I thought, do you know what, I've done really well, because they had a really nice breakfast. They've both skipped into school really happy. They're on time. They're both in uniform, in the right uniform. Like I've not missed some event that was meant to happen. I was sitting in the car this morning thinking, well, there you go. That's me, achieved something for the day. But I think that does give you because actually what they need from you right now isn't necessarily some big moment. They just need you to be present with them now. And I do think that's where children are really grounding. Actually, I've thought that if waiting for scans and things, I come back to quite a lot thinking it's really hard having children through this, but I also feel really lucky as well, because I do think there's times where if I hadn't had children, like getting up every day would have been a lot harder. Putting structure in my day would have been much harder, especially when you're waiting for results and anxiety is even more increased. But children kind of force you to do that, because like you said, or like you were giving the example with Sarah, like I think it's like they still get up at 6 a.m. because they want to put cartoons on, and they still want to do like their lunch and have tea. It's at bedtime has to happen at a certain time, and that doesn't change whether you're worried or not worried. And so I think that forces you into a routine that actually keeps you going a little bit and keeps you present in the moment, which I think that's a bit of a gift when you are feeling anxious like that. And I do think that is probably something you have to put more effort into if you don't have that in your life anyhow. Yeah.
It's a really interesting way of looking at it, because I hadn't thought of it like that before, because I'd always sort of thought, you know, going through this with children, it would be heartbreaking. It would feel so heavy, and, you know, and all of the concern, the anxiety around it. But I hadn't necessarily thought about the flip side of it either, which is the amount of juice, I guess, and energy and innocence, in a sense, because I know your kids are pretty young, aren't they?
And joy.
That can actually enjoy, like and that side of it's a real blessing.
Because they accept you for who you are. So actually I found, like, during chemo and things, especially near the end, like by the time I'd lost all my hair and I'd put on, like, I was puffy from steroids, and I looked in the mirror, and sometimes it's hard to love yourself in those moments, or even like yourself, because you just feel like you're losing everything, like, you're about who you are. Like, you think, God, my eyelash has fallen out, I look tired, you know, things that are just, and my little boys still think I'm the best thing ever, because in their eyes I'm still mum. It doesn't matter, like, what's, you know, if I take my wig off, or if I have, like, I'm just their mum and they love me, like. And I think having that ability to see yourself through the eyes of your children all the time is really it really gets you through, I think, those moments where you, even if you feel really rubbish about yourself and all of this, and you think, God, I just feel awful today, or I don't like that, and then you see them looking at you and you think, like, oh, they don't care, they just want me to, like, tickle them or read a story with them or be with them, because they just accept all of you, don't you? And I think that's a really precious thing to have in your life when you're going through this. Yeah.
So you mentioned before about some of the things that people say that are not necessarily that helpful. What are some of the things that people tend to say to you that you think, yeah, that's just not helpful? That is not helpful.
I do get a lot of, you don't look like you've got cancer.
Right.
Meant to be as a compliment.
Does it feel like a compliment?
I'm quite relatively direct as a person, so I tend to say, well, thank God for that, because I wasn't really going for that today. Like, I was really looking poorly, wasn't what I aimed for when I left the house this morning, so I'm glad I've nailed it. Like, because I just think, yeah, right. Like, I was really hoping to look like I had cancer when I left the house today. But that one, I always thought, I always think, I don't know what you want me to do with that. But thank you. But yeah.
What about you? Is there anything that kind of grates on you?
I think it's quite opposite. Often when people say, oh, you look really well as well, like I think there's like people feel more able to comment on how you look or what you kind of, I guess your energy levels and things. And I'm like, I don't know, just with that sometimes feels like a bit of a pressure. Well, actually, you know, I'm feeling a bit crap or something, but I look all right. So, there's, and I guess things like, oh, just keep positive, or, you know, they'll tell you a story about somebody else who's had cancer and got through it, or
I've had ones about people who've died from cancer, funeral stories and things that I can tell halfway through the story the person's realised that this wasn't the thing to tell me, but they also don't know how to get themselves out of it. So then we both have to go through this sort of dance where I'm saying, well, okay, and you can see they're starting to think, oh God, like, this wasn't the story to tell you. But now we don't know how. There's loads of these little awkward social interactions that I think, God, I didn't have to deal with
you
it
need to
before.
stop practicing that. I'm going to give you time
I just want to say, shall we just end this now? Because you know and I know that this wasn't a helpful thing to say. But I think you get that. It is, I think, because people I think it's because that you can tell the intention's good, and so I guess I am always appreciative of the intention of someone saying, "You look well," but it is hard when you get it a lot of the time, and I also don't want them to tell me I look really tired.
No,
it's rubbish. So sometimes I think there isn't a right thing to say either.
Would you prefer that people just don't comment on how you look or how you come across?
Because I think that's weird too. I've said to my sister before that you can't get it right, really, because if you talk to me about cancer all the time, I think, oh, for God's sake, you're still talking about cancer. There's more than that. But if you don't talk to me about cancer, I think, oh my God, I'm going through cancer and you're not talking to me about it.
Yes.
So I'm like, you can't really win. Just like as an FYI, I'm going to probably have an issue with this either way. Like, oh, I'll be happy either way. And a lot of it depends on your own mood, doesn't it? Like how I've arrived in the day rather than necessarily what the person is saying exactly. I think that's the I don't know if you feel that might just be me.
Absolutely. Sometimes people tiptoeing like, do you want me to ask? It's really difficult, isn't it? And people don't get it right. Like there are no right things to say, and each day is different. So that's going to change. I think we just need to complain about it sometimes or moan about it. I think, like you say, if you think about the person's intention most of the time, that comes from a place of like real concern or care. So I think it's reminding yourself of that. Sometimes I have said, it's not that helpful to say, with loved ones or equally, if people don't say anything, then it really annoys me. Like,
because it is weird. If I think even things like my hair being different, if there's somebody I've not seen in a while and they don't say anything, I think we can both tell that my hair is now short and it wasn't before. And for you not to say anything about that, I can also and I know that there's something here and you're not saying it. So I think either way it can feel a bit invalidating if somebody doesn't say it. But I also just don't think there's not a single thing that will make it better or take it away. And I think sometimes there's a hope with those kind of conversations of what should someone do or what's the right thing to say, is that it will make the situation better. And the reality is it's not going to, because it's crap, isn't it? It's crap living with cancer. And I just think that one interaction isn't going to change it. So somebody might say the wrong thing one day, but it's more about the consistency or the showing up or the being present, I think, in a longer series of events rather than one sentence that somebody says to you. I
really get that, because it feels as though, and tell me if I'm right, is it that sense of there'll be certain people where they sort of get it as much as they can get it, but they genuinely care and they're there and they would be willing to kind of meet you where you're at on any particular day and talk about whatever you wanted to talk about. And that's far more comforting and validating than just the sort of, saying the wrong thing, turning up and saying the wrong thing.
And I think some of the most helpful things that people have said to me are, I don't know what to say. Like, I have no idea how to, like, what would be helpful to say. And just saying that kind of makes you go, oh, actually, well, there is nothing you can say. So let's just go from there. But I think, or acknowledge, like, that sounds really hard. Like, if someone says that, rather than, oh, well, at least they're scanning you, at least, and you just want to, like, moan about something that's happened, like cannulas or blood tests or something. Oh, well, at least, you're getting but if someone says, actually, that sounds a bit crap, or like, I don't know how you get through that, or how you like, those kind of things have been really validating. Otherwise, I think it does, it kind of dismisses your experience when people try to find a solution or not acknowledge it,
or just not acknowledge it. And it reminds me, and I'm sure I've even mentioned this on this podcast before, but so my brother unfortunately died in 2013 in a climbing accident, which was really tragic. And you can imagine everybody was reaching out and, sort of giving nice messages. Some people said something that was not quite the right thing, whatever. But when I eventually went back to work after about 7 weeks off, I was met with such support and a lot of people coming up to me and saying things. And there was one woman who just completely ignored the whole thing, said absolutely nothing. And you can tell even now, 13 years later, I haven't quite dealt with the fact that she just didn't say anything. Because at the time I was furious because I knew what she just was like, welcome back. And I thought, no, that's not good enough. That's I've literally been to the depths of hell here in this experience, and you're not even going to say anything, even risk saying the wrong thing. And how dare you do that? And so I made a point for myself that whenever anybody had a really difficult something that they were going through, that I would say something, even if it wasn't, I didn't know if it was going to be the right thing. It would be something that would at least acknowledge the difficult or the difficulty or the challenge that they were facing or going through.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like, I think the complete absence of anything, because then you fill in the gaps with your mind anyway, don't you? It's back to that uncertainty or like, at least if somebody's trying, you feel like you are trying to validate me. You might not be getting it.
You might not be getting
quite
it right,
but I feel like there's a care coming there, and it's something, isn't it? Whereas like nothing at all, I think. Because like there's some things that are really obvious, like you are going through something really significant, and people know. So if they don't say anything, it like your mind fills in the gap sometimes, and I think it also makes it can make it awkward for me. Like, so I think about then I don't know sometimes how to say, because I think, do you know or do you not know? Or I think you must know, but I don't know now how to tell you that actually the reason that I've lost my hair is chemo. Is that because, do you know that or do you not? And then I'm there going, oh God, I don't know I don't know now how to manage this situation. Whereas if somebody just says something, it is more helpful, because then I think, oh good, that's it, we've said that and that's it, done with. Even if it's the wrong thing, it takes the pressure off me to, I feel like I have to do that in every interaction.
Well, that's the thing, it just gives you yet another job to be kind of managing other people, where really, I think, and this is advice for anybody listening who, if there's someone that you know, whether it's someone that you work with or a neighbour or a friend or someone that you've kind of lost contact with, if they've gone through something really hard, don't let yourself off the hook. Don't let yourself off the hook by saying nothing, because I think I don't know, it's disrespectful, I think, and it puts a burden on the other person, and actually your moment of discomfort is nothing in comparison to what the other person's going through, so you need to kind of get yourself over the line.
And I think also be consistent with that, like don't just say one thing and then think that that's it, done. So I guess, for you, it would be, I guess keep showing up, keep, saying things or checking in.
Yeah. I think especially for people who are in your life regularly, like it is, I do find the people that practically just offer things, and even if I don't want to take them up on that, like they don't hold it against me that I don't take them up, but they also don't put the onus on me to come up with the suggestions. And I don't know if I feel that more because I'm a mum as well, and like the mental, and a woman, and the mental load is big, isn't it, in life? So and then you add somebody saying to me, what do you need? And I'm like, oh God, I don't know what I need. I can't tell you what I need right now, versus someone just saying, like, I've got a couple of really good friends that will say, I'm free ABC days, let me know and I'll take you to those appointments, or I can do this day and I'll take you out if you want to go out for a walk, or I can arrive here and we'll go for, and if I don't want it, I can just say, actually, I'm good just now, or don't worry, I've got it sorted. But it puts the idea, they suggest it, if I want it, I can take it. And
but it's not putting the pressure on you. It's not putting the
pressure on me, because otherwise I go away having to think, oh God, what can I say to them about what I need from them right now? And I don't know what I need. Do I want to go for a coffee? Do I want to go for a walk? I don't know what I want to do. And I just think, God, it's another thing for me to have to think about when I'm already holding even more in mind when you add in all the appointments. And I mean, I think that's one of the things as a mum living with cancer, I've joked at points I could do with like a PA for the cancer stuff, because like trying to plan like your appointments around what is already a difficult job as a mum in terms of like, or as a parent probably, but more as a mum, I think, for like childcare and getting to work if you're a working mum as well. I have a work diary, a childcare diary, and now I have a cancer diary, and it's trying to organise all of that, and then in a system where none of the cancer teams talk to each other either. So, I mean, God, that just is infuriating, isn't it? Like, I have one person phoning me from like Newcastle Hospitals Trust who has no idea of what the notes say in Northumbria, and they can't check each other's notes, and they're saying, well, I booked you a scan at this time, and I'm saying, well, I have an appointment at exactly the same time with an oncologist, and they're saying to me, well, which one should you prioritise? I'm kind of like, well, you're my clinical team, like I feel like you should probably have like, I don't think I'm the middleman to navigate this right now, but you end up having to be the one that's saying, well, can somebody else not look at that? And then you add the GP surgery in, and trying to manage all of that alongside what you manage anyway is just a whole other level of like so life admin, I think, which is hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it's even remembering to book it. Like I have a Zoladex implant every month, and remembering to book that at the GP, and then I think
pick up the prescription for it. You've got to get a prescription separate to the appointment, and then they won't book the appointment.
No,
it's really frustrating.
And it's all those little things that seem so small, but actually really impact. You know, it can really have like chasing scans that should have been requested, and those kind of things really do. Yeah, it creates stress, and it's the unseen stuff that people be like, oh, what did you do today? And you're like, well, nothing really, but I've actually been on the phone, been speaking to like so many different people trying to get something sorted, and often it doesn't get sorted. And that can it's really frustrating. And like it eats into your time of, often it's child-free time, or like time that you had to, put aside to do something else, and you're being your cancer admin person. It's,
Sarah talked about that a lot, about needing to have a PA. Because it was the work related things, like you say, and then the child, all of the stuff that you have to do with school, and then all of the trying to keep on top of all of the admin, the appointments and the prescriptions and the scans and all of that sort of stuff.
And again, that meant that isn't recognised in the system. So like they'll say, can I just give you a ring? And me trying to say, well, I can't actually take your call because you're likely to tell me something that involves me having to switch my head into hearing quite serious information about my health, but I have my 4-year-old with me all day today, and yes, I can ask him to play in the other room, but that's not really conducive to the conversation that we need to have on the phone. Or yes, well, I could answer the phone, but I'll have to put you on the speaker in the car, and I can't do that when my children are in the back, and I don't want them to hear like. So it's even just because something is, they'll sort of say it as if it's really simple. Well, I can just give you a call. I can't tell you what time it's going to be, but you need to answer the call. And you're there thinking, well, how am I going to do that between like running about a park or doing the school run or what? Like, you don't really want to be walking along the school playground trying to hear something that's really important about your health. And I think that's really difficult because that's not seen really. You're just kind of expected to be available at all times, at any time that they need you to be. There's not that's not acceptable to say, well, actually you'll have to phone me at 4:00 because that's the only time that my partner gets in and I actually have time to listen to what you're going to say. That just isn't met with yes, absolutely. Like it just doesn't work like that in the way the system is, does it? It's
and I think that this is all of this, like you said the word before, unseen. It's all the unseen, like work and concern that you have to have for staying on top of all of this information and making yourself available and being available, that people who haven't gone through the same experience just would never imagine that that's the case, and also someone who hasn't been through it wouldn't imagine that it's not joined up in the back end, so getting conflicting and sort of overlapping appointments from different, different doctors, you wouldn't imagine that would be allowed to happen.
And not for the same things, like for things that you think, well, because I've had a conversation where somebody had said, well, do you want to do the scan or the oncology appointment? And the oncology appointment is to start the treatment that I need to keep me alive, and the scan is necessary because it's really important to get a scan and see where we're at. And you're thinking, how I think they're both equally of quite significant importance. There must be a way to have both of these in, but you're trying to have that conversation with like a receptionist sometimes who isn't necessarily even trained in the clinical stuff. I generally find if I spoke to the doctor about it or the nurse, like they would say, yeah, of course, Christina, like I'll try sort that. But quite often it's a non-clinical person you're speaking to as well who doesn't necessarily understand the importance of it all, and then you're having to try and explain that you're living with cancer and how essential both of those things are to your life. Like not just, it's not just that I really fancied going for my scan that day. Like that both things are needed. And I think that becomes really stressful, and it means you have to put yourself in a place of being quite vulnerable all the time as well, because you have to then emphasize how poorly you are and how sick you are, and that how bad this actually is, which you don't really want to have to keep doing all the time. Like it's not nice to have to keep going back to, well, do you remember this isn't getting cured, and actually this is very important. Like you'd rather they just understood that without me having to be the one that holds the responsibility for sharing that in all the appointments, because that's heavy. Like
I can imagine
that.
Yeah. So listen, for both of you, if you were to, I'm keen to understand, like as mums and as just a human being living in the world, how has the diagnosis for each of you changed how you see yourself and how you look at life?
Big question.
It is a big question.
Yeah, I guess. So, I mean, I described after the secondary diagnosis, I described it like looking at life through a magnifying glass. So it was like all the things that really mattered, like were like shining, like they were bright, because like it really kind of put things into perspective in terms of what was important, and what I wanted to focus my time on.
And what was that?
Like family, being, but not doing any kind of huge thing. Like I think people talk about wanting to be at weddings, but for me, it's like about being at school pickup and, being there when to notice the kind of day your kids have had, and to, take them to the beach, and to, just have, I guess it's the real, like, really small things, like the shared jokes, the family dance parties. It's all the little intricacies that make up family life and you as a person, that really just shot, like that really kind of, it was really clear to me after my secondary, like it was the little, the conversations in the car between the boys, and like the question, like it wasn't, oh gosh, I haven't taken them to Disneyland, or I haven't been on like I wouldn't want to go on a cruise. I don't know why I was going to say that, but I've always wanted to go to Japan. But like all of that kind of just disappeared. Like
all the big shiny things, sort of
like it doesn't matter,
disintegrated.
Like, and I've never really been big and shiny. I've never really like been very driven to have the best of anything, or and I've travelled a lot, and I've kind of lived a life. Like, I've never really seen myself as an old person, and I don't know why, but like, I think I've always kind of lived, done the stuff that I've really wanted to do. And that's been really helpful, actually, because I'm like, actually, there's nothing, I feel like I really did what I wanted at each stage. As like, obviously there's things I would change, but, I don't know if that answers your question. I think it just really put things into perspective, and that's quite a gift. It's quite joyful. Like it's, all the stuff that really matters and that like makes you happy is there. Like, right. It's like literally you can,
So is it maybe, if I can kind of just paraphrase and give it back to you, is it sort of like, really fully appreciating the small everyday moments that you might in the past have just overlooked or taken for granted because they're happening every day?
Yeah. And I think being like a sense of gratitude, I'm by no means like Mary Poppins. I'm not bouncing from one day to the next thinking, oh yeah, how grateful. Like life is life, isn't it? And the bills still need to be paid and all of those things. It's still stressful. But I think I can bring myself back to those moments. Like, that's the stuff that matters. And yeah, it is just the everyday, for me. Yeah. And I think you value like living a life that, feels right. So for me, it's very family driven, but, the stuff that mattered, like being outdoors, being, of service in some way, doing the stuff that, if you feel in your bones, it's the right thing to be doing. Yeah.
And was there anything at that time, because I love the way you say like about the magnifying glass suddenly just showing you the things that are really important, was there anything that you thought, I can't believe I've been wasting my time on this thing, or this, it could be a friendship or something that just wasn't working, or it was really stressful, and where in that moment it's just crystallized of, I'm not going to give my time and my energy to that thing?
I wish it was as simple as that. I think we still get drawn back into kind of comparisons, and I think, I mean, I guess I've never been hugely career driven, I think, which is mad really, because clinical psychology is like very hard to get into. But I think I've kind of, since my primary diagnosis, I think that was a real eye opener as well, in terms of how, like, when I stopped working, I was working in the NHS at the time, and when I went off to have my operation, like, I realised like how much I had been running on adrenaline. Like, I'd been doing a lot of hours, and I think at that point I was like, I'm not going back to that. So that was like 10 years ago. So I think that probably was where I had that realisation at that point.
A bit of a realisation.
Yeah. And I only worked part-time and kind of in different roles after that. So, yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. And what about for you then? How did it change how you see life?
I don't think it has, and I feel like I should have an answer. I feel like people ask me that a lot, and I don't know if it is because of the job we do, but I've always lived my life knowing that things happen. I work with people. I've worked with trauma for the last 15 years. Like, awful things happen to people, and they are completely out of your control, and you don't know they're going to happen, and they make no sense. And I know that about the world, and I think I've known that for most of my life.
So
really.
in knowing that for all of that period of time, do you think that over all that period of time it helped you to get clear on what was really important?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it was something I don't think it says, like, I've not worked at that or anything like that. I've always thought I don't regret anything I do in my life. If I want to do it, then I'll find a way to do it. Like, I never think, oh, we'll save that for another day, because I just don't, like, I think I've always kind of lived for the moment I'm in, and tried to, maybe like plan a little bit ahead, but like, I don't save things up thinking, oh, well, in 5 years' time I'll do that, or in 10 years' time I'll do that. If I want to do it, I would find a way to make it happen. So I don't, I think that has maybe helped getting, because similarly, I don't arrive with the diagnosis thinking, oh God, there's all these things I wish I'd done and I didn't, because I've just been kind of doing them as I went along. And so I think I don't have any big things I've missed, and it hasn't really changed my perspective, because I already had that perspective, I suppose. So I do think I do look to the small moments in every day, a bit like you were saying now, Katie, like, but I think I did do that before, like, so I'm not sure it's shifted my perspective on those things necessarily. I do find it a bit freeing. Like, I think it reminds me that my life is my life, it's not anybody else's life, because I think I hold a lot of responsibility for lots of people around me, friendships, relationships, all these things, and I think I feel a little bit more free to say, this is something I want to do, and so I'm going to make that happen. So it is a little bit kind of freeing in that way, but otherwise I'm not sure I've had any big epiphanies or which I feel like is a little bit boring sometimes, but
No.
maybe it's just the life that's happened before. I'm not sure. Yeah.
No, I can understand. I can really understand if you've always lived your life in like not in the way of, well, I'll get to that later. I'll kind of keep putting it off. And I'm not saying that that's what you've done. I just mean I'm trying to kind of see like and track with what you're saying. And if you've lived a life where I want to do this thing and I'll do it, done. Right, I want to do this, we'll do it, done. Then you haven't stacked some of the things or prioritized the wrong things. Let's say.
Yeah, I just always think you're not going to get. I suppose we all have different views on what happens when we die, but I don't think there's going to be a moment that I'm going to sit there and think, oh, what did that all look like? Like, did I, like, I'm not going to get like a review appointment at the end of life to say, well, how did that go? So I feel a bit like you do what you do in the moment, because if I save it up for this review at the end, like, well, I'm not that convinced that's going to happen. Like some people might believe that's going to happen, but not for me. So I guess I just try to do what I feel like the right thing is in the moment. And I just think there's so much we can look back on and think, oh, well, I could have done that. But I don't know, as long as you make the decision that's right for you at that moment in time, that's the best you can do, because like things change. Like if that other option was available to me and it was possible, I probably would have done it. Like I did what I could do with what I had available to me. And we can't live 100 lives in one life. Like there's always going to be things that are just not on our path. Like it's not possible for us to all be everyone and do everything. And so I think some of it's maybe just an acceptance of knowing that there's things that, well, that's great for them. Like I'm really pleased that that's part of their life, but that's just not the way my life is going to go. My life is doing this and I'm happy with that. Like, so maybe it's a balance of kind of accepting, like an acceptance of who I am maybe in my life, and trying to be guided by, like, I don't know, my intuition, my gut, like a little bit in the moment, trusting my own decisions on things. I think that helps, but I think that has helped me probably like not feel like I don't have a panic about stuff I've not done, or
does it feel like, what's the difference when you are a secondary when you have the secondary diagnosis versus the first diagnosis in terms of the approach and how the system relates to you and treats you?
My experience was probably different to yours, Katie, because it was longer in between your diagnoses, but I just don't think the secondary diagnosis is held in mind or seen in the system enough. So even going back to the conversation we were having about the way people don't acknowledge it, you were giving that example at work of somebody not saying, I feel like that's what the system is like as a secondary patient. Like nobody is saying, oh, we see you and we see that that's what you're living with, and that's different from where it was before, because a lot of the system, I think, is set up to help you when you think you're going to be cured and get to an end point in your journey. And there's not a lot of acknowledgement of how it feels to be in that system when you know that you're not going to be cured. So even just from things like being at the hospital and seeing, sitting in waiting rooms where lots of other people are ringing the bell beside you, and you're thinking, well, I wish I could ring the bell, but I know that's not going to happen. Or people just not, I don't know, there was tick boxes on forms I had for radiotherapy, and it was either cure or palliative, and just having to go through, like even having to go down to that. I don't know if anybody, did I need to be told that, or could they just have ticked that themselves for their clinical record? Like, I don't, things like that I think is somebody where your diagnosis has changed to become a secondary or an incurable diagnosis. I just think it's not there's beginning to be a new dialogue around like living with cancer and what that means as like a long-term health condition, but I'm not sure that dialogue is filtered in to the way that the treatment is being delivered. So every professional I come across, they don't treat me as if I'm living with a long-term health condition. They treat me as if I'm living with primary cancer that's going to be cured. And I quite often have to tell them that that's not the case, or no, well, I might be back again because I'm now in a process of this being lots of scans rather than one, or people will say to me, oh, is your treatment almost finished? And I'll say, well, no, actually it's never going to be finished because I'm always going to be on treatment. But I just don't think it's seen. And I think that's really, I just think it's quite re-traumatizing actually, because I think you're constantly in environments where your new trauma is now, I'm not going to be that person, I'm not going to get to the end of this, and like that, there's not a light at the end of the tunnel in the same way that there was before. What you're getting your head around is a completely different thing of living with something rather than it coming out the other side of it. And I don't think that's really acknowledged, and I'm not sure the system has worked out how to update the way it works with that actually. I don't know if yours is different, your experience.
I mean, I've got a lot of similarities there. I think there's the small things that could happen as well that would make it much easier, I think. Like my nurse, the nurse at my GP asks me every time I go for my Solidex appointment, oh, so how long are you going to be having this for? And you're like, well, not indefinitely. And it's that, I guess, that you were saying, you have to retell your story and retell your diagnosis so often,
which just feels so insensitive for you because you're
like, how many times? And every time you go for a CT scan, it's those questions before that feel really, they're not asked compassionately often. They're asked because they're a tick box. Are you pregnant? How do you know you're not pregnant? Are you sure you're not pregnant? And like sometimes, like someone's asked me to write in their notes because he was like, well, how do you like it's those things that could be made just much easier. And could it not just be in my notes so you don't need to ask me that every time we go in? And I think the understanding like around what it looks like and what it means to have secondary breast cancer, just I don't know if it's not there, or I don't know if there just isn't the kind of joined up thinking, but it feels really clunky, and it feels like you just feel really unseen. I think that's the only way I can really describe it. It's like
because even all the admin stuff we were talking about before, it's sort of more tolerable, I think, when you think this is just for a certain period of time. Like, so if you think I'm going to be in chemo for whatever, like 8 months or 6 months or however many sessions, and you think, well, I can kind of tolerate having to drive around the car park trying to find a space, or and actually, like I had my chemo at Rake Lane, and they do have reserved spaces, so I would say they're very good at that. But like, for example, going to the Freeman and trying to get parked isn't like, you can kind of tolerate it if you think this is just for a period of time and then I will finish this. But when you're having to go in and think, well, I know this is likely to happen again, like maybe in a few months, maybe in a year, but I don't know when, but that I'm also having to tie this in with usually other treatments as well, because generally you're not only on one thing, so you might also be getting bloods done, or you might be at the GP for something else, and trying to do that, all that stuff just becomes even more difficult, I think, when you think, I also have to find a way to keep living with this, because that it's not the, and even just for like a kind of financial perspective, like I could maybe be off work for a period of time for something if it was condensed, but this is my forever now. So actually I have to fit all that in with life, because life just can't stay on pause for ever for me to just do cancer. Like it now has to fit in. And so all those things that made it difficult before, I think now become that becomes even more heightened, because this isn't just for a temporary period, this is forever, that I'm going to have to be dealing with GPs or appointments that they don't know how to fit me in, and me having to explain how important this is. And it's just that retelling all the time and having to come back to it, that I don't think any of the systems support you in living with that, and you have to have so much interface with them all. You can't even avoid it. You can't say like, actually, I'm just going to not do that. Like you're forced into it all the time, and I think that's it's just really hard. It sounds like it makes what is already a really hard situation harder unnecessarily. Yeah, absolutely. And it's that I think now, because we're both younger, we're classed as young now. And I feel like I went from being like almost a geriatric mother to now being a young person with cancer. So, but I think even like it's sort of set up for people who are at potentially the end of life as well. So then there's like people, so you go in places and you can see people who are really poorly, but that's not that easy either when you're trying to be hopeful that you're living with this and that, we're not at the point that we're dying yet, but we're also not being cured. And it's that bit in the middle that I feel like it's almost like it doesn't exist. Like you're expected to sit in amongst and watch as either you see what you're scared of happening in the future or what you hoped was going to happen, but it's not going to happen. And you're just kind of in this no man's land in the middle thinking, God, I don't know where I fit anymore because I don't fit in any of these places. And
that's
I'm not
really how it felt when you were describing it. It's like a no man's land.
And I'm not sure they've found a way to create a space for us in the system anywhere. Actually, it doesn't feel like that exists.
And I think even wider, I think, there are no statistics around it's not looked at, or it's not. So, when I was first diagnosed, I was asking my oncologist, how long will this treatment, all the things that you would expect to ask. And it's like, well, we don't know. So I guess in that sense as well, there is nothing really for people to kind of pin things on, or you are kind of just this little anomaly in the system, or black hole.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even the stats, I know that was on the cancer plan that the government are looking at now, but like they don't know how many women or how many people are living in the UK with like secondary breast cancer. They don't even have a number on that because they haven't counted it. And so that in itself is kind of mind-blowing when you think surely you would have a gauge of how many people are living with this in the country and be thinking about how to support them and how to then target treatments and where you might need to target that. But they don't even have a starting figure. And I know that's one of the things that they've sort of pledged to do, is to get a number for that. But that's kind of then the world that you're living in with this diagnosis, is that you don't even know where you fit in any of it. It is just this bit in the middle that's almost like it's not meant to exist. And I think that's how we feel it day to day, which is all those examples of nobody quite knows what to say to you, and it gets a bit awkward. But that is also the kind of the bigger reality as well, is that it doesn't really fit anywhere. We don't really fit anywhere yet.
It must feel really disorientating and frustrating
and isolating. I think.
Because you can't be without cancer either.
No.
So I don't fit into the groups that I do still fit in a bit, but I'm not the same as I was before either, because I can't go back and not have cancer. So I can't now be a woman, a younger mother or a woman living in her late 30s with 2 small children who doesn't have cancer. But also as someone who does, there isn't a space for me either, because there's so few. It just is difficult to know where to fit, isn't it?
But I wish there was an answer, and I don't have an answer.
No, I know.
But it's important to talk about that, because it's like raising awareness of that part of it. Even you get this really difficult diagnosis, and then it's like, actually, we don't really have any clue about anything, because you're in this position now where I found it really gobsmacking that there was no people weren't counted until they died. So you have no base rate of when people are diagnosed, how old people are when they're diagnosed, how long people that just blew my mind. What? Why is that not happening? I don't understand.
It doesn't. I can't make sense of why it's not being measured. And why there isn't some sort of
and even
approach.
Just treatment pathway. From an NHS perspective, it would feel like, to me, it would make sense to have a slightly different pathway for the people who are living with this, so that, I don't know, that even if it's just that you then come into contact with other people who are living with it in the way that you are, rather than it all being part of the same thing, because it does shift the way your reality is. It's not the same thing you're living with anymore, and but it's still all being called the same thing, and it's still all being treated the same in terms of the paperwork and the process, but the reality of it is different. And I do think the individual, I think things like my oncologist, I think she is very nuanced and knows exactly how to talk to me about it and treat me. But I only have like one appointment with her every, few months. So that in that one interaction, you feel seen and heard. And I'm fortunate, I think, that I do have somebody that makes me feel like that. But then in all the other bits that you interface with people, you don't. And it does just add up, I think. It's so I think it is just the awareness. I think it's starting to put it on awareness, so then somebody does something about it. Because just being aware of it, actually, I don't think is enough at this point. We live in a Western world where there is a lot of money in our country, and there is plenty of resources to channel into the things we need to. And so I'm not sure just being aware is enough. Actually, I think there should be change happening.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like a rare disease either. Like it's
If there's someone who's watching and listening today who's just received their first diagnosis, is there any kind of words of wisdom or advice that you would want to share with them? Because we talked earlier on about the trauma and the shock and all of those huge overwhelming feelings. Yeah. What would you want to say?
I think my first instinct is just to tell somebody to take some time, I think, actually, because I think in that moment it feels like you need all the answers now and right then, and you want it. And actually, I think sometimes it's just having space to breathe and let it, and just have a bit of time, because I do think time helps it ease a little bit. You start that once you get a plan, it takes some of the uncertainty away. You start to see that there is hope and there's lots of possibility, that actually there's lots of people living with cancer, living through cancer. For lots of people, lots of people will come to an end of treatment as well. So I think it's just give yourself some time and some space. I think that's probably what my instinct is to say initially.
Thank you. What about for you?
I mean, very similar, really. Draw on resources, like, gather your team, I guess. And yeah, I mean, I want to end on something hopeful, maybe. But it's like that, life can go on. And, even with the incurable diagnosis, that there is life to be had, and you can still continue doing the things that you love and be around the people that you love. And someone said to me, maybe this feels hard because it is hard, and I think that they're words that I've said to other people so many times, but I guess reminding yourself of that, but also that life can continue.
And you're still you. I think like a diagnosis, it's the same as any diagnosis. It doesn't change who you are. Like, I'm still Christina, Katie's still Katie. Like, it doesn't matter whether we're living with this or not. Like, it's you are still you. It might feel like your whole world has been turned upside down, but your world is still there. And I guess you do have control over how some of that looks. Some things have been taken away from you, but there is still a world there, and you are still you within it. It's just, it takes a bit of time to come back to that, I think.
And would your advice be any different for anyone who's getting that secondary diagnosis?
I guess I was probably thinking about it from a second. You want to answer the first point, but I mean, I think it's important to advocate for yourself as well, and to really trust your gut and your intuition, and don't be afraid to ask questions and to challenge things, and to really think about, just because someone suggests something, I guess often when other, especially healthcare professionals, suggest something to us, they can feel the pressure to just say yes and go along with it. But really, I would encourage people to take some control in terms of their understanding, but also some of the decision making, if possible, and that's not easy, and that isn't for everybody. But for me, I like to know as much as I can, and that helps me understand what's going on, but also be formed and inform the decisions that are made, and I find that helpful. So I guess I would encourage others to think about that as well.
Mm-hmm. I think I find it helpful to remind myself that even though there is certainty in my diagnosis, my prognosis is there's less certainty in that, and that is hopeful, because we may know what the diagnosis is, but we are all individuals and statistics are averages, so our prognosis can be very hopeful. We don't know what that's going to look. So I wouldn't say disbelieve your prognosis, but at the same time, I would place more weight in the diagnosis and then let's be hopeful about our prognosis. But I think I also find it helpful to frame it from we're living, I am living today. I'm not dying. I'm not, and I think that I find that helpful to come back to every day is today I'm living, and that is my reality. And I think that's a helpful thing to keep reminding yourself of.
Well, thank you both. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would love to say before we close out the conversation?
I think I think I might have successfully talked myself out. Somebody should mark this moment down.
The time what?
Yeah, when did that happen?
Well, I have to say, I mean, I think the honesty and the transparency that you've both brought, and the experience that you've had, you're both young, you're both mums, you're both clinical psychologists, and you've both had such kind of unique journeys. But the sort of transparency and the honesty that you've brought to the table, I really want to say thank you for, because I've got no doubt someone who is sitting there, whether it's themselves, they're going through this, or they're supporting someone, love someone who is going through this, I think it's going to really help them understand more about the reality and the behind the curtain, behind the scenes type of challenges that it throws beyond just what you can see, beyond what we would imagine. So thank you so much for that. And then for you watching and listening, we would love if you've got any questions, any comments, if you've got any questions for either of our wonderful guests, then please do get in touch, because we'd love to help. But thank you from the three of us. Thank you so much for being here and listening, and we will look forward to seeing you the next time. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.